to grow up might just be the biggest adventure of all.
Disney has made several live-action remakes of classic movies, the most recent being the new Disney Plus original Peter Pan and Wendy. I've never seen the original animated version of Peter Pan, but I thought this one would be worth checking out considering the main characters are humans, so it should be pretty hard to ruin. I don't necessarily think they ruined anything, as the characters seem relatively similar to the originals from the few small sections I've seen, but I wouldn't even consider saying that they succeeded at making a good movie. There's a lot here that I'm sure hardcore fans of Peter Pan would despise, as well as maybe a few things they would like, but as I said before, I'm not one of those fans. After seeing Peter Pan and Wendy with absolutely zero bias, I'd still say it was disappointing. After all, it's still a Disney movie, so I'd expect the world to feel magical and exciting to explore, but there wasn't any of that in this. The world showcased very little magic and leaned very heavily into realism. This is a problem that has been shown in practically every Disney live-action remake lately. They're all trying to make their characters look as close to the real thing as possible, but that isn't why we all love the original movies. The originals are popular because cartoon-looking characters that have some sort of whimsical traits have an unmatched charm that people can't help but adore. Admittedly, almost all of the characters in Peter Pan and Wendy are humans, so realism isn't a problem with that, but there are aspects of the environment where this problem can be seen. One example is Skull Rock, where their version is an average-looking mountain where you can vaguely make out what is considered a skull. Now, I really don't think it has to match to the original version, but it does have to be impressive in some way, and once again they wanted to make it as realistic as possible rather than being creative and cartoony, and as a result we're left with a tall rock with an opening at the bottom to represent one of the most iconic landmarks in Disney history. This is only the beginning of what becomes a seemingly empty world without anything provoking the childlike wonder that I look forward to in Disney movies. Before I continue with more negatives of the movie, I want to be fair and mention something good that I experienced, and that was Captain Hook. I have no idea how he is compared to the original, but this casting choice seemed well thought out in my opinion. Jude Law as Captain Hook worked incredibly well, and I think he pretty much carried the entire movie. He played a very entertaining and menacing villain, very similar to what I've experienced in even the animated Disney movies. The rest of the cast was okay at best, for no reason other than their performances. Peter Pan, Wendy, and everyone else looked pretty much how I'd imagine them looking, but they didn't really act like I would expect from a mainstream movie. Every scene seemed overacted and exaggerated for no apparent reason, and most lines were said with a ton of enthusiasm, even though the emotion of the scene didn't really warrant that kind of reaction. Personally, I think the problem might have been less on the acting and more on the story execution. The story was lackluster and seemed like they were just throwing scenes together that had no correlation at all. My main complaint for the story was that Peter Pan just shows up out of nowhere and takes the kids to Neverland within like 5 minutes of meeting them. Without seeing the original, I do assume that's probably how the story was in that one too, but I think they could have made it at least a tiny bit better. It doesn't really make sense to me how this random kid that decided he wanted to not grow up just ended up in Neverland somehow and started being able to fly around with Tinkerbell. Even with the story not making much sense, the movie still held my attention, mostly because of the Peter Pan and Captain Hook storyline. I don't like having such a negative opinion of Peter Pan and Wendy, but even with little to no expectations at all, I was still disappointed. I can only imagine how someone that is familiar with the source material would feel. Disney needs to start making their live-action movies focus less on realism and more on the magic that everyone loves and looks for in their movies. If you have Disney Plus, I think it's worth checking out, as you might have a better experience than I did, and it's free to watch, but I in no way think it's worth getting Disney Plus just to watch this. Even though I wasn't the biggest fan, I'd like to know what you thought of the movie, especially if you're a fan of Peter Pan, so let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date with my videos. I'll see you next time.